All right, all right, all right. We are in another live, and this could be a good one. I've been waiting for this live for a while, really excited to introduce my man who is on the studio backstage. We got the man Cologne, we got Devontae. Everything is going well. If you let me know you hear me, put your sin of the days in the chat. My sin of the day, we got Dutch. Welcome, 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 sir. Our sin of the day was Our Psalm for Home, Our Psalm Day for Home by Rasasi is an inspiration of Silver Mountain Water. So it was a great day. Went through, and that was a good one. Obsession, so that must mean it was a workout day, Demand. I know how that all goes. I know how that all goes. So I had to read Royal Oud. Royal Oud is my favorite creed. I think you put that in my sin of the day community tab. So Royal Oud is always a good one. Royal Oud is a great one from Creed. Oh, yeah, Royal Oud is nice. Royal Oud Satin Mood. All right. That's a good one as well. Oud Satin Mood is a great one. So, hey, we're not going to keep you too long, and we really want to get into it. I have the pleasure to introduce everybody. What's up, Sally? Welcome, sir. I have the pleasure to introduce Curtis Knows. I found him probably about 4 months ago, maybe 5, but I really got intrigued by the types of fragrances that he was putting on his channel. I think he's a super cool dude. Man, he is just great. He has a mellow vibe, and he just puts out some heat. I love the way he starts it with his deep black and white and his deep voice, and he opens it up, and then he just gives you straight fragrance gems. So he is all the way from Japan. I know maybe probably people that follow him knew that, but just wanted to let everybody know. And we are going to introduce to everybody who does not know, Mr. Curtis Knows.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Hey, hey, hey. We got Gems in the house. We got Sally. We got the Man Cologne. We got Dutch. And Scorp 3. Hey, and Trijon. Trijon is a good scent. That is, to me, a more masculine version of Baccarat Rouge 540. I like Trijon. That's fire. That's really fire.
Is that one from is Trajan from Electimus? I've heard good things about that one. Yeah.
That one is nice. That one is nice. Thank you, Sally. Don't forget to hit the like button. Let me just tell Sally, if he looks at his name, Sally knows it all. It is in blue, and it has a wrench behind it. We need to get some quid pro quo on that, but I will leave that alone. So we're introducing Curtis Knows. So, what we're going to do on tonight's live is we're going to talk about some fragrances from some forgotten houses or some forgotten fragrances. And we're also going to find out a little more about Curtis Knows. I really think that the fragrance community, we get a certain viewpoint of people when we see their videos and things like that. And sometimes videos don't only they only show a part of you. They don't show everything of who you are. So I got some time to talk to Curtis before the show started, and we kind of vibed and went over some things about my life and his life, and it was really cool. And I think it's a good thing for you to know because as you are watching somebody, you are getting the fragrances they like and things like that. But when you get some of their experience and things like that, then you kind of understand maybe how they got to the fragrances that they love or things like that. So I'm really glad to have Curtis in the house. Like I said, I reached out to him about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I know we went back and forth. We said, yeah, it might be a good idea. And we kept doing the comment thing. And that's a good thing of trying to get out the comments and getting the email or Instagram to get a DM. But we finally kind of worked out a date because being in Japan, of course, he is 13 hours ahead of us because we're in daylight saving time. So trying to get this all worked out and put together was a little bit of a task, but I'm really glad that we do.
I
And I
appreciate
will
it.
first give a chance for you to give your little monologue soliloquy and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks so much for having me on Charm City and putting all this together. I was really excited and a little bit nervous at the same time. I've never done a live before, but talking to you beforehand, like you said, we kind of vibed together a little bit, got to know you a little bit, and so yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. But yeah, I just want to say hello to everyone, just to give you a bit of backdrop, bit of I guess info about me. So yeah, my name's Curtis Knows. Live in Japan. I've been here for about 13 years or so. Um, the original plan wasn't to stay here for 13 years, but life kind of pulls you in different ways, and that's just kind of the way it worked out for me. But I really enjoy my life here. Japan's a wonderful place. Other than the summertime, which I was talking to Charm City about a little bit ago, it's just really, really extremely humid here and hot in the summertime. So if you're looking to visit Japan, I would definitely recommend fall, winter, or spring. The weather is absolutely perfect around that time. Um, but yeah, I've been here for about 13 years. Started my fragrance journey, quite some time ago, and kind of went down the rabbit hole of, you know, just trying to get as many fragrances as I could. Some of those, I loved. Some of them I just liked. But I quickly realized that, I wanted to build a collection that's number one, true to myself, and with fragrances that I absolutely love. So what I did was I got rid of just about all of those fragrances. I had about 100 at the time, and I think I maybe kept like 5 or 6, got rid of everything else, and then just kind of started to rebuild. And so, I think the big mistake that I made before was I didn't sample enough. And I was blind buying a lot of fragrances. And most of the times when I would blind buy fragrances, it usually wouldn't work out the way I was hoping for it to work out. I think, as you guys know, when you look at fragrance descriptions online, it'll list the notes out. But a lot of times your image of the fragrance based off the notes is completely different than what the fragrance actually is. And so that was a big learning experience for me. So just the importance of sampling in terms of building a collection that you truly love is something that is really important for me. And so now I can, I feel like I can confidently say that I've built a collection that works well with my personality and fragrances that I absolutely love. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today, and thanks again for having me.
Yep. Thank you, sir. So we go in first. We want to give a salute to Demand Cologne. Want to give a salute to Devontae, who finally caught alive. I know he's been working on that. We got Dutch the Bible Thumper here. And who else? Of course, we have Sally. We have Scorp 3. And we have my man Hidden Gems. Going down anymore. I think that's everybody right now. So the first things first. Anybody that's in the chat, if you have a question for Curtis, this is the time to do it. And if you write in the chat, then we'll ask about that. Duke in the house, Baltimore. All right. Salute, sir. I am right down the street from you. And then we got William Rodriguez. Glad to have Baltimore in the house. And William Rodriguez. Center of the day is Sangria. Okay.
Sangria.
Everybody is getting Lorenzo Pazzalia. I gotta get that right because I always want to pronounce the G. Pazzalia. So everybody has that. It was good. Actually, when I was with Jim's at the Scent Room, we got to sample Lorenzo. So that was pretty cool. I know I missed the Scent of the day. 1907. Okay. Scent of the night. All right. Thank you, Duck. And let's jump into it. All right. So we did get that you were in Japan, and I think you talked about it, or otherwise you talked about with me that you were in Japan for 13 years. So you've been there for a while. So my first question, and then after you do a question, then we'll go with a fragrance that you want to present. But my first question would be, do you speak Japanese?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say, when people ask me that, I would say I speak functional Japanese. So meaning that, if I'm living my daily life, I don't have any problems with that. So where I might run into issues is if I'm maybe going to a doctor's office and I'm hearing like technical terms, like medical terms that I might not be used to hearing in daily life. That's where it might kind of throw me off a little bit. But for the most part, I can communicate in Japanese.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my group is just as much as reporters as I am. So we'll hold this one up because that was one of the questions that I had. But let's start with a fragrance.
Start with a fragrance. Yes. So let's see. I think the first one that we'll go with is basically one of my favorite notes in perfumery. And I've talked about this a little bit on the channel. Of course, vetiver being one of those notes, but also another favorite note of mine is rose. And rose is a note that I shied away from for such a long time because I viewed it as being just a bit feminine. And I didn't want to come off as too feminine. But I quickly realized that I was missing out on so much. And the fragrance that really turned me on to rose was Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle. That was the first fragrance that, like true rose fragrance, that I had experienced. And so that kind of started me down the path and kind of sparked my interest in the note of rose. But the fragrance that I'd like to show you that features rose quite heavily is Rose de Taif by Paris Monte Carlo. Nice. Are you familiar with this house or this fragrance?
I'm not. And that's the great thing about why I am such a fan of fragrance reviewers, and I'm just as much of a fan as I am a reviewer because I get to see all kinds of houses. So tell me about the house.
Yeah, so this is a fragrance house from Italy, and they just do some amazing work, especially their citrus-based fragrances that they have. I have another fragrance. I'm going to be talking about that fragrance as well. They do some amazing work. And this fragrance especially, this is the extrait version. They also have an eau de parfum. But this is basically my image of this when I first smelled this. Is if I'm laying in a bathtub full of Thai rose petals and someone cuts open a lemon and squeezes the lemon juice all over those rose petals, that's the vibe that you get with this. I mean, it's very deep and thick, jammy rose with a slight bit of greenness, but also you're getting that citrus from the lemon. And as this fragrance starts to dry down, you get a bit of patchouli and a bit of musk that really starts to push forward. However, this fragrance is just super rose dominant from beginning to end. But man, I think in terms of where I am in my journey now, this has to be hands down for me the best rose fragrance that I've ever smelled. It is that good. I can't speak highly enough about this. Yeah, I remember when I first smelled this. So in Japan, we have a fragrance boutique called the Nose Shop, and so they have a bunch of good brands. You know, BDK, Amouage, Paris Monte Carlo, Hubagant, like Eight and Bob, like a lot of different brands. Laboratory Olfativo, and so I first smelled the eau de parfum of this, and I was quite intrigued. But then I saw that they had the extrait, and I was floored at how good this is. I mean, it is such a realistic take on Taif rose, and I think for me, in terms of there's so many different kinds of rose. You know, you have Taif rose, Damask rose, May rose, Rose Absolute. Like, there's so many different kinds of rose, and I think out of all those categories of rose, Taif rose is probably my favorite. This one just really speaks to me, and I would say, in terms of performance with this particular fragrance, this is heavy. So you really need to kind of be careful. I mean, spray as much as you like. There's no rules to this. But speaking about my own experience and where I am in the world in Japan, subtlety is everything. So you never want to be that nail that really sticks out.
Right.
So you know, moderation is key. You know, I think to wearing fragrances, especially here in Japan, or else it comes off a bit too harsh and people really kind of like push away from you. But yeah, this one pushes out quite heavily, and I think the comments that I've gotten off this one have been quite interesting. They've been positive for the most part, I think. But one of the comments I've gotten was from now I don't usually wear this fragrance to work, but I did one day, and my coworker was like, "Wow, you smell like a jungle." And so I wasn't sure how to. She's Japanese, and so I wasn't sure how to take that. But I was like, I asked her. I said, "Is that good?" And she said, "Yeah, I like it." And I was like, "Okay." But it was the first time I had heard someone say that. "Oh, wow, you smell like a jungle with this particular fragrance." But yeah, I think overall, people really do enjoy this fragrance, and I know I love it. I mean, I wear fragrances for myself anyway. But yeah, it's always nice to get, you know, positive comments about fragrances. But yeah, this is a stunner. Has anybody in the chat, have you guys ever tried this fragrance before? Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever heard of the brand Paris Monte Carlo? Yeah.
Yeah, Domain Cologne said it was a great house, so I know he's heard of it, but I don't see anybody else that said anything else.
Yeah. Do you guys have like Paris Monte Carlo like in boutiques in the States?
That's another question that we'll talk about, as far as, because that is probably kind of regional to where you are, which ones are around and which ones are not. So Selly's saying he thinks he's seen that one before. John C, welcome, sir. He says he knows of the house but haven't smelled this one yet. It's on my list now, and I love a good rose fragrance. I'm the same way. I'm gonna have to put that to the challenge, because right now Narcissi is my #1 rose fragrance.
Oh,
right
nice.
now. And yeah, so if that one's better than Narcissi, my wife is gonna be very mad that I spent. So I'm gonna have to check it out.
I've never smelled Narcissi, so I can't compare the two. But yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think.
Yeah, Nargissi is really really good, but it also it features Damask, May, Rose Absolute, and Taif Rose in Nargissi. It's a really really sunny fragrance. Also, I have a few other ones that have Taif Rose, but like you, Taif Rose is my favorite rose note, so I really do like that.
Nice, nice.
Let's see. So we'll get into the next question because there are some things that I did that you kind of touched on, and that one I will get back to as far as the difference in culture. So that
Sure.
was on my list, and I see it sometimes a good list is always made to be circumvented. But
Yeah.
the next question that came up in the chat is what made you move to Japan? And that was one of my first questions that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, good question. So right out of high school for me, when I graduated high school, I went into the military and I was in the military for 5 years. And so one of my first deployments was to Japan. And so I went to Okinawa actually. In Okinawa and mainland Japan are quite different, not only in terms of language, but culture is also a bit different. So when I went to Okinawa, I was like, this is just okay for me. Japan, it's kind of a cool place, and I thought all of Japan was kind of like Okinawa at the time. But anyways, I had gone back to the States. Deployment was finished. I ended up going back to Japan for a second deployment, but this time it was to mainland Japan. So in Sasebo, if you're familiar with the geography of Japan, so Sasebo is on the island of Kyushu, which is the most southern island of Japan. So I had gone there, and that's where I really kind of fell in love with the culture and the people. They're just so welcoming. And, Japan in general is just a very safe place. And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. You never want to be the nail that sticks out because society will just hammer you down. And so I think that's one thing I really like about Japan is, you see like when maybe natural disasters or things kind of happen here, everybody is able to remain so orderly and just very respectful towards everyone, even in times of struggle. And it says a lot about the Japanese people and their society and the way it functions. And I just have a lot of respect for that.
Right.
But so kind of jumping forward a little bit. So yeah, those were my experiences in Japan. So I had a really good impression of Japan. And after I got out of the military, I had a lot of Japanese friends, and then, of course, my wife is Japanese, so we had met in the States. She lived in the States for a long time, and so that's where we met. And then we decided to make the jump to Japan, just as kind of a switch of pace. And I think at the time also, like, I think I was around 32 at the time, and I couldn't really speak to her family so much because I didn't have any Japanese ability, and I felt, I wanted to be able to build a relationship with them, and so I thought, hey, let's go to Japan, and I can learn the language. We'll just stay there for a couple years, and then we'll go back to the States. Well, that 2 years turned into 13 years. So just somehow it worked out this way. And, but like I said before, I do really enjoy my life here, and I can't see myself moving back to the States to live. Of course, I'll go back there to visit. I try to go back every year. But living there again probably isn't in my deck of cards at the moment. I
Nice.
do I do enjoy my life here, and we're quite settled in here.
Nice. Nice. So
Yes,
let's
yes.
we're gonna keep this is the next question. What's your
Sure.
favorite house? But I wanted to recognize not so famous YouTuber, and of course, welcome Spence. And he has 6 bottles from the house because Spence,
Oh, nice.
yeah, his fragrance collection is extraordinary. We
Oh,
want to
man.
also welcome Red Spence. Glad to have you here. And I think that's it. So I will look at some other questions. But the next question that came up is, what is your favorite house?
Oh man, this is a tough one. I don't know if I can pinpoint it to one specific house, but I've spoken about this on the channel quite a few times. One of my favorite houses is Nishane. I have quite a few Nishane fragrances, and I think
Nice.
Nishane was one of the houses that really kind of pushed me into that niche direction. I think the first niche fragrance that I had ever bought was maybe the first was Hachibat, and that just kind of started me on the path and developed my interest in niche fragrances, but especially into the house of Nishane. And with that fragrance specifically, Hachibat, it's been an interesting journey with that fragrance because now when I wear Hachibat is an amazing fragrance. You can easily wear that fragrance on its own. But nowadays, when I wear that fragrance, I tend to always layer that one. So I usually layer that one with it's either Hachivat in 100 Silent Ways, Hachivat in Ani, or Hachivat in
Nice.
Wulong Cha.
Nice.
And those combinations, you're kind of creating a new fragrance, and it's yeah, I mean the sillage trail that it leaves is just breathtaking. I really, really enjoy it. But yeah, I would say probably Nishane, and then maybe my second favorite house might be Jeroboam.
Nice. I've seen you feature Jeroboam a couple of times.
Yes.
I will jump in and just give a rose fragrance that I really love. I let you.
I almost pulled that one out.
So this is
Yeah.
Rose Amiad,
Yeah.
and it was by the Amiad dynasty is where they kind of came up with the name. This one is rose raspberry. It has sugar and patchouli, oud, amber, and sandalwood. It's sweeter, but this one is definitely a forgotten fragrance to me. This is something that is a gem of a rose fragrance,
Yeah.
and I don't think that this gets enough play. This almost made my top five. I might make another top five from what I released, but this was definitely one that was on the list. I think that if you love rose and I love rose, I have plenty of rose fragrances. This is one that should be in the collection. So just wanted to
Sweet.
put another rose fragrance alternative out there. And so yeah, I think we're vibing. We got
Yeah.
similar type of taste, so that's great.
Yeah, that really is a good one. I literally had my hands on that one because although you see Artile des Ors being talked about, you really don't see a lot of people talking about Rose Omiya.
Yeah,
And yeah, I that one's a good one. That one is a good one. Love it. Nice
yeah,
choice.
that one's a good. That one's a good. So the next question is, how did you begin to learn the language?
Yeah, so I would say that when I lived in the States, so interesting. Like when I met my wife, she couldn't speak any English, and I couldn't speak any Japanese.
Wow.
So, yes. So there was a lot of kind of gesturing, smiling, a lot of times where we were lost in translation. But I think it really kind of made the relationship quite fun. And a lot of times she would speak to me, say things to me in Japanese. So I was able to pick up on words here and there. And I think I also took a bit of Japanese at university, but what I found was the Japanese that I learned at university versus the Japanese that I heard on the street was completely different. So thankfully, that experience that, I had gotten from my wife really helped me to hit the ground running once I got to Japan in terms of hearing that kind of street Japanese, because all the stuff that I had learned at university, I mean, other than like the basic kind of grammar structure, was pretty much irrelevant for the most part. I mean, it is completely different, what you hear on the street versus what you're learning out of a textbook. And I think, I did, I think once I got here, it was just kind of really making an effort to speak as much as I could. And that just really helped me to, and like I said, I'm definitely not, I would, like I said, my Japanese is functional. But it's, it works for me. But I would just say, if you are interested in learning Japanese, I would say probably take some basic courses. And then, if you don't live in Japan, then just try to make some Japanese friends and try to speak to them as much as you can. I think just speaking and maybe watching Japanese TV, that helps out a lot because you're able to, helps with your listening for sure. And that's something that, I mean, since I've come to Japan, I haven't really seen American TV. So I don't really know what's cool, what's good these days. But yeah, that's kind of how I learned, just kind of being surrounded in the environment once I got here.
Nice, nice. So we will go with your second choice and we'll load up the next question.
Sure. Yeah. So my second choice, I'm also sticking again with the House of Paris Monte Carlo. So I kind of, I tried to, when I went through my selection today, I definitely want to feature Paris Monte Carlo as a house because I feel like they are extremely underrated. You just don't hear a lot of talk about them. So yeah, another fragrance that I would like to feature from them is Cedro di Diamante. I don't know if you can see that there, but this is
writing it down.
Yeah. Paris Monte Carlo does some amazing citrusy based fragrances. This one smells like an icy cold lemon sorbet. Yeah, if you've ever had that. So as you can imagine, this is just the perfect fragrance when you want to feel refreshed, clean, vibrant in that very hot and humid summer heat. This is one too that, I had talked about, moderation and subtlety here in Japan with, fragrance spraying, but this is one that you can go crazy on. And the reason for that is because it's not one that projects heavily. This does sit quite close to the skin. It's moderate. With this one, I tend to spray it on clothes. So it helps it to last a bit longer. Longevity is, maybe you're looking at kind of like that 4 to 5 hour range with this, which isn't bad for a citrusy fragrance.
Right.
But yeah, this one is just really, really good. And also in the dry down, it gets a bit creamy, slightly creamy. But it's like a citrusy creaminess, which is helping to give it that kind of sorbet type of vibe. But yeah, I absolutely love this one. And one thing that I'll say, one thing that's really cool about Paris Monte Carlo, I don't know if you've ever been to their website to check out any of their fragrances, but on their website, if you're into layering, they give you a bunch of ideas for layering combinations. So like, okay, if you want to boost the citrus in this particular fragrance, layer these two up or whatnot. So they give you a ton of layering combinations. That's really cool. And one of the layering combinations was with Rose Taif, these two, to boost up the citruses. And man,
classic, huh?
it works.
Nice.
It works. And typically when I layer fragrances, so if I was going to be layering these two together, I typically lay down the heavier fragrance first. So, or the more complex fragrance first, which would be Rose Taif extrait. And then I'll spray that one down. I'll let it dry down. And then after it dries down, then I'll lay down the lighter fragrance. And it kind of depends, like it's a bit of trial and error. It's the same thing like with the Nishane fragrances when I layer that. It's a bit of trial and error, and you have to kind of figure out what works best with your own skin chemistry in terms of how it's going to, perform, but also like the balance between the fragrances. So it's a bit of trial and error, but once you find the spray ratio that kind of works good for you, then yeah, you can just go forward with that. but yeah, typically with this, if I'm speaking about these two, I might put like 3 sprays of Rose de Taif extrait, and then I might put about 7 or 8 sprays of this.
Nice.
So, and that seems to work well with this particular combination, for me. But yeah, it's a, you know, Paris Monte Carlo is definitely a house that I haven't dove into enough, and it's one that I'm completely intrigued by. So I'm thankful that there's boutiques here in Japan that feature these fragrances. But like I said before, their citrus lineup of fragrances is stunning. It really is. It's probably, in terms of fragrance houses that I've smelled, it's probably the most natural smelling citrus fragrances that I've ever smelled.
Wow.
And that's a big statement, but in my opinion, they really are that good.
That's nice. Yeah, I have not. My wife is not going to be happy with you for introducing me to another fragrance house that I haven't seen yet. But yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. But I will definitely get into that. I want to get some samples from that. Let's see where I will go. Um, Let me as we go. So, big back question. Do you understand what big back question references?
I don't.
Yeah, that's a U.S. kind of cliche meaning
Okay.
fat people question, or
Okay.
but big back. So usually fat people have big backs.
Got it.
So that's why he was asking, what's your favorite Japanese food? In talking about food, so because I'm probably getting in trouble by even saying fat
Oh
people, we're gonna go with a gourmand that is Vanille Havant.
man,
This one specializes in a note of vanilla. It's people who have it really love it. However, it's not readily available for everybody. And Vanille Havant basically takes vanilla and does it right. This is more in line of like a vanilla extract, not the vanillin, like that syrupy vanilla that we always think about in a lot of fragrances. So vanilla extract basically is kind of boozy, and some people have replaced it with booze, especially during the prohibition when you couldn't have booze. They would take vanilla extract. So that's where the booziness rum kind of accord comes into this one. It has kind of like a chocolatey vibe where patchouli sometimes gets chocolatey. That's again with the vanilla that comes in from the vanilla bean. And so this has cacao, it has tobacco to give a tobacco feel, and then of course it has vanilla, but this is not an overly sweet vanilla. This is by far my best vanilla tobacco uh, fragrance that I have. Um, I know
wow.
I had Chergy, and Chergy is there as well. I think this focuses more on the vanilla than the tobacco,
Hmm.
but this one is gourmand in a bottle. I get mad compliments when I wear it. The last time I wore it at an event, of course, everybody knows that I'm the guy who always wears fragrances. But of all the other people that wore fragrances, I took the cake literally. This is so gourmand feeling and pastel like. Great fragrance. One of my I don't even know if I have a top 10 for life anymore. I probably have like a top 30. But it definitely is one that would have to always be in my collection. I think that one is phenomenal. I think that
That
one is
that
phenomenal.
that's one that I've been intrigued by for such a long time, and I've never gotten the opportunity to smell that one. But that house in general, I've heard a lot of good things about. I don't own anything from Les Indemodables, but um, yeah, I've heard they just create high quality, just absolutely stunning fragrances. But that fragrance Vanille Havane that you just introduced it's one that I definitely want to add to the list because
If
man,
you're looking at rose fragrances, they have
mm,
Rose de Jamal, absolutely gorgeous.
man,
So I did get a discovery set of them. And
mhm,
because this is the only full bottle I own, I will
okay,
have Rose de Jamal. Some of they use very different methods. to extract the notes out
Okay.
of it. So they use some green things and stuff like that. And some of their, like, their sheeper is very dated to me. I
Okay.
wasn't overly impressed with their sheepers, but their Amber Supreme is really nice. Their Rose de Jamal was really
Mhm.
nice.
Ha
And
have you ever, what did you think about their, I don't quite remember the name, but I think it's like a fougere. Do you know what I'm talking about? It says like it's like fougere something, I think.
yeah, I think that I'll have to look it back up because
Yeah.
I did it. I'm supposed to do a video. I'm going to do a video on all of them and go through them because I wore them all a day, but I'm going to go back through them, put all of the notes. And usually, like on my scent of the day when I wore them, I actually did put the day that I wore it and what I thought about it and things like that. I'm going to compile all that and I'm going to make a video about the Discovery set because
Oh,
I don't
cool.
remember the fougere exactly right now. The ones that really stood out to me were the Amber Supreme,
Mhm.
the Rose de Jamal, and there was another one besides the Vanilla Vaughn that really stuck out to me. Uh, Definitely, Duck 2 is talking about Vanilla Vaughn going to his collection.
Man.
So we had the question of favorite food. We had a question of
Favorite
favorite
food?
food.
Yeah, great question. I like a lot of Japanese foods, but I would say if I had to choose one, it would probably be yakitori. Are you familiar with yakitori?
I am not, but I'm pretty sure that probably a lot of what we get in America that's called Japanese food is probably not Japanese food. It's American version of Japanese food.
I would say I wouldn't argue that. I would say there's probably, a bit of it's the same thing kind of like in Japan. If you want to eat like Mexican food, it's kind of Mexican Japanese food.
Yeah.
There's a bit of that, you know, they try to make it as authentic as possible for the Japanese palate, basically. Um, but yeah, yakitori is basically it's like a chicken skewer, essentially. So, but yeah, it's one of my favorites, and just the way it's prepared. So they prepare it in two different ways. So there's like two different types of sauce that they're basically using. So basically, they have like tare, which is kind of like a sweet, kind of browned, like sugary type of sauce. But then they also have shio, which means salt, and it's like a salty white type of sauce. I prefer shio on
Okay.
mine, but to each his own. But all in all, yeah, it's really really good. Kind of like you would almost kind of consider it like kind of like bar food in a sense. But I mean, in Japan, they have restaurants that are strictly yakitori only. So they're
Oh, wow.
specialty restaurants. So those chefs have spent years and years studying, uh, the art, I guess, of grilling and cooking. The specific charcoals you need to use and everything when you're grilling those. And so, I mean, just it's masterpiece on a stick is what it is. And it's just the tastes that you get are just it's just an explosion of just various tastes in your mouth, and that's something that I really love. And it's not just about chicken. I mean, you can get they'll do also pork. They'll also do pork and also different kinds of vegetables on there as well. So you get quite a wide range of tastes.
Nice. Nice.
Yes,
Nice.
yes.
Yakitori. I'm gonna have to add that too.
Man, it's good
See
stuff.
if I can find that somewhere around here. And have you tried? I have not tried the new Atelier d'Or, Villa Primrose, but I will definitely add that to my list to check out and get my nose on. But yeah,
Yeah,
have you
yeah.
tried that one
I,
yet?
I I have not tried that one either. And I wasn't actually. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I wasn't aware of that fragrance. So this is the first time I'm hearing of it. So thank you for bringing that up. If it has anything to do with Rose, then I'm definitely intrigued. Huge fan of Rose. So thank you, John, for mentioning that.
Yeah, Dutch the Bible Thumper. That is true about instructional languages are different from everyday spoken language. I actually in college I took Arabic. And
Oh,
what I found out is that I was basically taking Quranic Arabic
wow.
and that I was speaking in very opaque, flowery language that the normal Arab looking at me, a Middle Eastern guy that speaks Arabic, is like, dude, nobody speaks like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
But I remember the only thing I can remember now because it's been so many years ago, or more than 30 years ago. But they would ask, "How are you doing?" And you say, "Bikhairin, alhamdulillah." That means I'm fine. All praises due to God, or whatever. And but they were like, nobody speaks like that anymore. But
yeah,
yeah, so a lot of it is instructional.
yeah.
I've been trying to take more. I'm working on my Spanish, so I do listen to Spanish TV, and
Hmm.
I take Spanish languages like from tutors and stuff like that, so I can be a little more instructional.
Oh, nice.
To be a little less instructional, a little more of a modern language speaker. So I'd say
Yes, yes. Man, Spanish. I feel like that's kind of for me. I took a bit of Spanish at university, and man, I struggled with Spanish a bit. And I feel like for me, I feel like Spanish is harder for me than Japanese.
wow,
Um,
because that
yeah, it,
on the scale of I guess they have a scale where they basically talk about the difficulties of language, and
yeah,
Japanese is up there. I think Chinese is one of the hardest,
yeah,
but
yeah,
Japanese is up there as well as far as being a hard language to learn.
yeah. And I think it would in my it could be like that for me because at the time at university I was taking both Japanese and Spanish at the same time. So, and I think my interest was more geared towards Japanese. So my focus was a bit less on Spanish. So that could be why I think that Spanish might be a little bit harder than Japanese. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I didn't, it was more, at the time, it felt like it was a bit more difficult for me to pick up than Japanese. But yeah, to each his own, I guess.
Yeah. So I know Spencer's probably talking about Benia Vaughn. I think I'm trying to catch up with the chat what he has in his cart. I've seen Spencer's fragrance collection. It is something
Oh
to
man.
behold. It is definitely. Um, Next question. Just we'll have it loaded up, but let's go with another fragrance you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I am going to jump to, all right, I'm going to jump to probably my favorite tobacco fragrance. And this is from the house of Maison Violet. This is called Un Air d'Apogée.
Wow, nice.
So this is such a gorgeous, slightly earthy, honeyed tobacco. But what's interesting about this fragrance is there's no honey listed in the notes, but it does have the note of mimosa in here. So a lot of times mimosa, when it's used in fragrances, it can kind of give off a slightly powdery feel, but it can also give off a honey-like vibe. And so that's what's giving it that honeyed vibe because there's no honey actually listed in the notes here. And also, so basically, upon initial spray with this one, you get a very delicious honeyed tobacco vibe. Later on, you start to get some hay that pushes through, and that kind of gives it an earthy, slightly earthy tone to it, but not overly kind of green or earthy. It's just subtly there. And then more deep into the dry down, you get a very subtle hint of leather that starts to push forward, but it's not overbearing. But you can definitely tell that it's there. But overall, this remains quite tobacco dominant from beginning to end. And yeah, this is a stunner. I'm telling you, this is such an amazing one. And I think again, the House of Maison Violet is a house that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, but they have some bangers like this one, Un Air d'Apogée, and also another one called Sketch. is another one that I really like, and I've sampled that one before. And they have a few others on the list, but I don't know if you're familiar with Natalie Lorsan. So she perfumed. She's the in-house perfumer for Maison Violet. She's perfumed like Bentley for Men Intense,
Okay.
which you may or may not be familiar with.
I have that. Yeah.
I have that one. So,
Yeah.
but she's just done phenomenal work here. But the fragrance that I kind of really gravitate towards from this house is Lunaire d'Apogee. I mean, it's just a gorgeous honey tobacco fragrance.
Nice. Guys, he is bringing some fragrance houses that we're not seeing a whole lot. This is really great. This is really great. So I'm gonna let you go to this next question.
Yeah.
Is there a fragrance that reminds you of home?
Man, that is a great question. Now, I have come across many fragrances in my journey that have been quite transportive, taken me places. But one that reminds me of home, I can't say that I have at this point in my journey. But like I said, that's one thing that I really, really do enjoy about fragrances, especially now when you smell something and it can take you somewhere. And I have quite a few that have done that for me. But for one that's kind of taken me back to my home, back in Texas, back in the States, I haven't come across a fragrance like that quite yet. But I look forward to the day that it happens, if it does.
Nice.
How about you?
Is there a fragrance that reminds me of home? Wow. I've never even thought about that. That's a good question. Um, hmm. All right, I'm gonna have to think about that one. I would think one reminds me of home.
Tough question.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I'm definitely gonna have to think about that, and that will be on another live. I'll come up with a different one, an answer for that. Uh, to one that reminds me of a nice sweet amber is Arabian Oud Kalamat.
Ooh.
So this one is one that I have not heard a whole lot about. If you want an edgier one, they have Kalamat Black. But this one has blueberry, anise, it has cashmere wood in the mids, some floral notes, and the base is amber, honey, and musk. It
Ooh.
is a beast mode fragrance. It'll last for 10 hours, and it really has a very good transition where the blueberry and anise comes out on the top of a whole lot. The woods, the floral notes, and the rosemary, I don't smell as much, but it is a beautiful composition. It is definitely one of my favorite amber fragrances because this one is a little semi gourmand, a little sweet with the touch, and it's a musky, woody amber fragrance that I really like. I think that once I started getting into Arabian Oud, I just went
Yeah.
kind of crazy with Arabian Oud fragrances. But there's a lot of them that I like, and that one is definitely one of my favorites. I get a lot of compliments when I wear it, and
Hmm.
it lasts for a long time. Kalamat, and I forgot what that means. All of them have a different. I think Kalamat means word. I'll have to check that again.
Wow.
Like Wasala means letter. That's from Arabian Oud. But yeah, I think I'll have to check and see while I'm looking that up. But
Wow. That looks like a good one.
it is. It's one of my favorites. And I did want to talk about culture
Yeah.
And I know that culture definitely finds in that Japan has a very strong sense of culture.
Hmm.
America, it's more regionalized as far as their culture is, and you can,
Yeah.
like, the South and the North can have very different ideas of things. But what I've heard is Japan, a lot of their culture really goes throughout the whole of Japan, and that it's very, very staunch and very recognized, and people really follow that. So I'm just curious on your takes on the culture, then we can also add it to the question that John C has about the fragrance boutiques. Does that uh, basically play into the type of fragrances that they offer or that they showcase there?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I would say in general, Japan is a very conformist society. So kind of like what I was touching on earlier, it's like, you never want to be that nail that sticks out. And Japan is very good about you know, following rules. If there are rules in place, they will follow those rules. They will not break those rules. Um, but with that said, I would say, like, for example, to give you an example, is like if you're waiting at a crosswalk and the light is red for you to walk across the street, no one will walk across the street, even if there are no cars. No one will walk across the street. Now, if one person is going to be that nail that sticks out and starts to walk across the street, then others will follow. But you never want to be the first one to break those rules. Um, so, and it's kind of, I think it's a good thing for their society in the sense that, it kind of keeps order, and I think it keeps the harmony within Japanese culture, and that's such a big part of their culture. Um,
Right.
but at the same time, in some ways, it kind of, from an outsider's perspective, I'm definitely not criticizing Japanese culture in any way, but from an outsider's perspective, I think it also kind of limits their individuality in many ways. Not in the sense of like breaking rules, but in terms of also, like expressing their opinions. Like if they're in like group meetings, they tend to not express their opinion because they don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. They try to avoid conflict, so they'll hold on to those, and they'll just kind of, even if they don't, you know, believe that to be true, they'll just kind of hold on to it. And I think that kind of leads to a lot of some problems in their society, the biggest one being suicide. So it's a very high stressed culture. Their work life balance is difficult, to say the
Wow.
least. And that leads to um, a lot of suicides that happen in Japan. I mean, their crime rate is extremely low. But if you consider suicide a crime, that would be the most extreme crime here in Japan. So yeah, it's just interesting, kind of the cultural difference between America and Japan. Um, yeah, it's a completely different world. I mean, it definitely shares similarities, that's for sure, but a lot of differences. And so
Nice.
there definitely some things that culturally took me a bit to kind of get on board with. But, after being here for 13 years, I feel like I've adjusted at this point, and just kind of, you have to kind of just accept things. This is the way it is here. You can't compare to back home. This is Japan. It's their culture. If you want to, um, be accepted into this culture, you have to, abide by those rules, and that uh, the way that the Japanese people think and the way that society functions. So,
Interesting. Interesting. Man, I'm learning a lot. This is really, really cool. This is really, really cool.
yes, yes.
Uh,
Sorry, there was another question you had said that kind of was I was supposed to lead up into, and I think I forgot what that was.
well, it was the culture, and does the culture affect what type of fragrances that are basically
Oh,
presented in the boutiques and things like that? Do
yeah.
they market, say, quieter fragrances, or do they market, any kind of fragrances just from the house, or because they're being loud with your fragrances shunned, do they not put those in the forefront as much?
Yeah, no, I would say there's not a whole lot of I wouldn't say that they necessarily limit, if they agree to accept a brand, um, they won't necessarily limit what they're accepting. I mean, they have plenty of like heavy fragrances that you can, like Oud Maracuja, or like Falcon Leather, or Portrait of a Lady. It's like they have endless amount of
Oh,
fragrances
yeah,
here, and
those
so
are loud.
yeah, they're all loud fragrances. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a whole lot of limit on that, but I would say the people who tend to buy those fragrances, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing in the States, are true fragrance enthusiasts.
Right. Got it. So do you have a lot of that just brought a question in my mind. Do you have a lot of Japanese fragrance? I guess there has to be. And just in thinking about it, I guess you would think that something isn't the same way in other places, but yeah, I guess there would be. The funny story, just to kind of explain why, just it is seems kind of strange that there are a lot of Japanese people that are enthusiasts to that level. I went to Puerto Rico,
Oh,
and
nice.
I was doing work in Puerto Rico. I was going back and forth a whole lot, and we were going out to eat, and of course every place you speak Spanish. And I, at the time, this was years ago, like almost 20 years ago. Yeah, in fact it was about 20 years ago, and I knew enough Spanish to be dangerous, but I'm more fluent now, but I understand a lot more than I can speak, but I'm functional. But we went to a Chinese place, and from America you're thinking Chinese place, they're going to speak English, at least some form of broken English or things like that. She spoke perfect Chinese Mandarin, and she
Wow.
spoke perfect Spanish.
Oh,
And
wow.
when I tried to ask for something in English, she's just like, "Hey, como?" And my buddy, he started talking, and then I was like, "Okay, okay." So I tried to start speaking in Spanish. She didn't even want to hear anything from me anymore. She was just like, "He's dead to me. What did he want?"
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a true story. But I guess there are people who are fragrance enthusiasts in every culture. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to think, because just in what John C was saying as far as culture and that being loud and being the kind of sticking out is not something that is looked upon. So are there Japanese fragrance enthusiasts that are loud and are in that kind of uh, place, I guess, where they're willing to be the sore thumb or the nail that sticks out?
I think there probably are, but I would say uh, I think they're really good about, they might wear stronger fragrances, like Oud Maracuja or Falcon Leather, or, maybe some kind of homage fragrance, that are known to kind of really push out
Put
and
out
are
there,
kind of
right?
room fillers, but they will really manage their sprays. So they might only do like a half a spray or like one spray. They'll wear those fragrances, but then again, it has been very rare for me to, when I come across people wearing fragrances, that I've come across someone to where I've been like, oh, like that's an intriguing scent. So there are, of course, niche fragrance lovers here, um, and but I would say, uh, yeah, I mean they're very modest with the sprays. I would say the only type of people that I might come across that are very loud with their fragrances are, um, in Japanese we say like nampa. So that is base. Those are basically guys who are waiting outside of the station, kind of catcalling girls and trying to pick up girls
Okay,
as they
okay.
come up with the station. And those guys are just loading
Always
up on the cologne. Yeah, so a lot of Dior Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel, which are great fragrances. But yeah, you can definitely they are heavy handed for sure.
got it.
But I would say in general, yeah, it's most people are quite modest, and depending on where you go, like there's some places that are definite no-nos for fragrance. Like you should never wear fragrance to a sushi restaurant because people want to appreciate the smell of the sushi. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah, places like that, you should never wear fragrance. I mean, even for me, it's like I try to avoid fragrance when I'm riding on public transportation. So I might bring like a decant, and then after I'm off, then I'll kind of spray a little bit. Also
Interesting.
in the workplace is kind of a no-no, although my boss gives me a pass. She actually kind of likes it. So um, I, I'm kind of careful with what I wear there. But I know that uh, if she opens the windows immediately, that she doesn't like it.
That you've
And
gone
that has happened a couple times. Um, but yeah, I mean, she's pretty good about telling me now. We've been working together for 10 years, so
cool.
she's pretty honest with her, with what she likes and doesn't likes with my fragrance. So
Okay. So Devante, I see your question. I'm want to make sure I get it exactly what you're asking about, like a guilty pleasure. My wife would consider guilty pleasure the amount of money that I spent on it. But yeah, if you could follow up with just give me some clarification what that question is to make sure we get it correct. And as we do that, we'll go through some people who came in saying, uh, Mr. Robert Platinum, my guy, good to see you. Mr. Dame, good to see you as well. And let's see, I think we may have everybody in there. But pure insanity. Is that what you are putting as a um hopefully I'm getting the question correct. So if the question you don't feel quite comfortable saying you rock. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Now I understand. So something that I like, but I don't feel quite comfortable saying I like. Do you have a fragrance like
mm,
that you like, but it's a fragrance not everybody likes? I can't say not comfortable. I do know that Sally says some of the fragrances that I like smell like cat piss, but um, but I feel comfortable in that because I think Sally's just wrong. Um, I can say for the most part, I think that I have some fragrances that people would say are feminine leaning and that I like. And that is a thing, I guess. But for the most part, I can't think of most of the fragrances that I have would fit into different things. So I'm not really a barnyard oud type of person, so I know there's some things like that, but I really, really don't go into that much at all. I would think the florals may be the biggest thing that some people think are feminine leaning, but usually when they think it's feminine leaning, it's not on my skin. It's that they
mm.
smell it off the atomizer or they put it on a testing strip and they're saying, "Oh, that's too feminine for a guy to wear. I don't think you should wear that." But if it's on the skin, it usually is a different um see Sally and y'all nose blind. Oh, so this Sally's funny. But so I think that's the biggest thing right now. I do like we had talked back in the studio before. It took me a while to get to the earthy patchouli, but now I really
Yeah.
love it. But I'm not ashamed of it. I'm really not ashamed of anything that I like to wear, and I wear it for myself. And there are some things that my wife is not as fond of, so I will not wear those as heavy or as much around her.
Mhm.
But I'm not ashamed of my choices, and she
Yeah.
just kind of racks it up that my nose hasn't matured. Like when she says her nose hasn't matured to some of the things that I have matured to. So I'll leave it at that. What about you? Not about the cat, because that's
Yeah, yeah,
a joke
yeah.
that
Yeah.
Telly and the rest of the crew we talk about.
Yeah, yeah, no cat piss here. But, I would say probably I touched on it a little bit before, and I think for the longest time, rose was one of those notes that I just avoided because, I saw it as being just way too feminine, and so, and I would say even though, when I first experienced Portrait of a Lady, I remember my first few times wearing it, I probably didn't come off as the most confident. I was definitely a bit self-conscious about it. So it took me a while to kind of, you know, grow into that fragrance. But now I love the smell of it from first sniff, but actually wearing it was something a bit different. It was just kind of getting over that mental hurdle of, oh, this is a rose fragrance. I'm a guy. Is this okay?
Yeah.
And once I kind of got over that and the ridiculousness of that, um, you know, things are all good, and I love rose now. So
Yeah, so in getting even further into it, the flaws are that I guess the one that I can say I had to overcome was Siberian Rose from Fragrance to Bar. That has
ooh,
pear in the beginning, and
hmm,
it's a really jammy rose. The dry down has suede in it, so it does kind of get back to unisex
hmm,
uh, once it starts getting into dry down. But that was one that people had told me was a feminine fragrance that I actually loved and I didn't care. And I didn't, for the most part, in most fragrance boutiques, they would basically say it's a unisex fragrance. But I did see in some boutiques they were saying it's a feminine fragrance.
oh
But
wow,
then again, it was, I bought, Overture Woman, but I don't feel like that's a feminine fragrance.
oh,
But so they are that's the probably the only thing that I could say would kind of be a guilty pleasure, because I really like the way the scent profile of Siberian Rose. But
hmm,
some people may think that it is very feminine leaning.
yeah, yeah, man. But you mentioned Overture Woman. God, that one, man.
I bought Overture Man first, but I do Overture Woman is, to me it's more unisex. Overture Man is very masculine.
Very
But
much so. Yeah.
Overture Women is more leaning unisex to me. The fruit kind of puts that up and kind of brings that into the unisex category. But Overture Man with the cumin and that leather, to me, it has the
Yeah.
same leather accord that Journeyman has. But
Yeah.
you're also adding cumin and the spiciness. Overture Man is that's ultra male, ultra.
Man. Yeah, it's a good one.
So let's see. We'll load this one up so you can see it, and then
Of course.
we'll go through another. If you have another underrated
Yep.
fragrance to put up.
Yes. We'll move on to the house of Mosque Milano. So this is a fragrance that, man, we had kind of touched on transportive fragrances. This is one that is transportive for me. Um, it takes me, you know, to the winter time. I'm just kind of sitting in a cozy cafe. It's snowing outside.
Right.
Just kind of maybe doing a bit of studying, enjoying some warm tea or coffee or something like that. Definitely maybe somewhere in the UK. I don't know if it snows a lot in the UK, but that's kind of the image that I get. But this one is from the House of Mosque Milano, and it's called Russian Tea.
Nice.
So
Nice.
this is basically You have black tea with some mint and some raspberry. So it's kind of just like, and it's such an authentic smelling fragrance. The tea note in here, it's so good. I love this one. But and then also in the dry down, you get a bit of leather that starts to push forward in such a subtle way. But it's such a realistic smelling tea fragrance. And probably I have a few different tea fragrances in my collection, but different kinds of tea. But in terms of black tea, this is the most realistic smelling tea fragrance that I've come across so far on my fragrance journey. And this one was perfumed by one of my favorite perfumers. In my eyes, he can really do no wrong. It's Julian Rasquinet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not.
Yeah,
But he does.
Perfumer that's really popular.
Man, yeah, he does some absolutely just stunning work, and yeah, he's done a phenomenal job here. And this fragrance is in terms of performance, it's a good performer as well. So typically when I wear this one, again, like I said, I'll typically wear this one in the winter time. It just kind of gives me a cozy vibe. If I'm going to like a cafe, just a day out by myself, like where if I'm going to read or something like that, there's just something very tranquil about this fragrance, and it just kind of helps to kind of relax my mood. And that's something that I really enjoy about this one. But yeah, this is a Russian tea from Mas Milano.
Nice.
Are you familiar with that house?
Yes, Mas Milano Tango is the one I'm most familiar with from that house. But I do need to find more Mas Milano. But that one sounds good. I will go with a new one that I just recently bought. I bought it at the Scent Room. This is Rainier.
Ooh.
And this is Kisses Rain. And they have two versions, but the version that I like the best is Labios Rotos, which is broken lips. And so this is a gourmand lover's dream. This is one that I instantly fell in love with when I got to there. They have a couple of houses that really you do not get a whole lot from. This is by Chris Carbonell. So just to give some background, Kisses Rain was originally done by another perfumer. It didn't really have the staying power, the longevity, and the projection that they were expecting. So they did a flanker, Labius Rotos, and this one was done by Chris Maurice, which he usually does when he does some different fragrances. But Chris Carbonell is the perfumer, and he's known for a whole lot of different things, like Herba Pure is one of them known for, and things like that. This is really nice. The main notes that I can say, cardamom is a note that I really, really enjoy. It makes things airy, it makes them aromatic, and the spice in cardamom is something, for whatever reason, is very pleasing to my nose and palate. So this has cardamom, and most things with cardamom in it, I really end up enjoying and liking. But it also has rose, coconut, jasmine, bergamot, almond, heliotrope, coffee, oud, sandalwood, cedar, vanilla, tonka bean, balsam, amber, musk, labdanum, and patchouli.
Wow.
And the way it comes together, it reminds me of like cinnamon. It has a cinnamon accord in it to me, even though cinnamon is not a note. And the patchouli is definitely a chocolatey version of patchouli. It's very gourmand. It is a stunning fragrance, and it lasts a long time. The vanilla is very nice and blended in very well with it. It's not overpowering with the vanilla. And the coffee, which is also gives it more of a deep and a rich darkness. But it is a stunning fragrance. The almond is blended in very well with this one as well. Rainier is a very nice house. They have a line where they talk about rain in different ways, and I want to get some other ones from that. But Kisses Rain was the gourmand one. that I know that I was wanted to get first. And they have a oud rain. They have some other rains. But this is really, really a great fragrance by a very underrated house.
Wow, yeah, I'm not familiar with that house at all. When you also when you made the purchase from that fragrance, were you able to find that fragrance in boutiques in America, or did you have to order from online somewhere?
This was in America. There's a couple boutiques that do sell it. Like Lucky Scent
Okay.
is that's the main one that has a lot of the niche fragrances
Yeah.
that everybody's kind of looking for. If usually any uh, very odd or specific niche fragrances you can probably find in Lucky Scents, but otherwise, a lot of times you just go straight to the manufacturer and you can order straight from them for the most part in America. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, nice one. Yeah, not familiar with that house at all. So
Yeah, it's a really nice house. Really nice house. Um, we never talked about where you are from originally. So wanted to ask that question and then we'll get into the question that is up on the screen.
sure. Yeah, I'm from the U.S., so from Texas originally. So I was not born in Texas. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and then moved to Texas when I was about 3 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, raised there. Kind of love Texas barbecue. So whenever I can go home, I always take full advantage of the awesome Texas food. So yeah, from Texas.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so here's the question. If you had to get rid of most of your fragrances, and I know you went down to five, but they are telling us to get down to three, what would it be?
Man, you want to go first on this one?
No, I didn't. I always want the guest to go first. I'm trying to think. I know two right off the bat. It's getting the third one that would be the question. So, my favorite fragrance of all time is Abdul Samad Al Karashi Blend. And that is similar to Blue Sapphire
Hmm.
from Boadicea, however you want to say it. It actually came out well before Blue Sapphire did. And
Okay.
I have a backup bottle. That's one of the ones that I do have a backup bottle. And it is probably my favorite fragrance of all time right now. It has the note of Taif Rose and
Oh,
oud.
nice.
And if you know the scent profile of Blue Sapphire, they are in the air during the dry down, very, very similar. Very, very
Hmm.
similar. Probably like 90%. That would be one that I always plan to have. Another one would be Arabian Oud Dawan, which is probably not a big surprise to anybody on the channel. That is my signature scent, something that I think can be worn all year round. And I would definitely want to have a signature scent. The Al Karashi blend is very heavy. It's beast mode. It's going to last on your skin for 12 plus hours and it projects like a monster. Similar
Mm-mm-mm.
to Blue Sapphire. Blue Sapphire is a very strong projector as well. The third one, wow, that is where it would get very hard because to make a choice.
Mm.
Uh, if you can think of one or two that you definitely would have, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to think of a third one.
Okay. Yeah. I would say I'm a sucker for fougères, and I love um, fougère fragrances. So there would definitely be one fougère that I would keep, and that would be Sartorial by Penhaligon's.
Wow,
Um,
Sartorial is classic. That's classic.
yeah, yeah. If you're not familiar with Sartorial, basically it's a quite a unique fougere. It has the typical fougere notes like lavender, a bit of oak moss. It also has honey in there, and there's also quite a unique metallic note. So when Penhaligon's was creating that fragrance, they were trying to um, give you the image of being like in an old school kind of tailor shop with like freshly pressed iron shirts. and I think they captured that image perfectly. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely sartorial. Another one would be, this is such a hard question. Another one would be probably, if I'm thinking about evening, uh, I might go with Tobacco Rose by BDK. Uh, love that fragrance. It's a nice kind of date night fragrance, very seductive. It kind of pushes into, after you spray it, it's very heavy on the rose, but it kind of pushes into that chocolatey kind of slightly gourmand territory. But it's just such a beautiful blend, and that fragrance was also done by Julian Rascone. Um, Man, and do you have a third one? Were you able to think of the third
I'm
one?
I'm thinking it'd be Vanille Havana.
Oh
That,
man,
that would be my third one. Because I'd have to have that semi gourmand, and that would be, so I have a signature. I'd have a very tight rose, and then yeah, Vanilla Havana would probably be my next one.
yeah, I think man, maybe my last one might be this is such a hard one. I'd probably go with maybe from Jeroboam, Vespero.
Vespero.
Yeah, from
I don't know
Jeroboam.
that one. What kind of
It
scent
is
does it have?
yeah, actually I have that one right here actually. I was going to talk about this one today. This is Vespero. So this kind of goes down the lines of like a Creta Ventus DNA, but you get some really, instead of using pineapple, they use apple. And I think there's a bit of grapefruit in here as well, but it's like a very crispy apple. And that contrasts really well with the leather that starts to push forward here. I wouldn't say this is like very heavy leathery dominant, it's not like that, but it kind of, that leathery almost brings like a smoky like quality to this fragrance. So you might, Aventus kind of has those batch variations. So I guess if you were to kind of think, this might be like a smokier batch version of Aventus, but it definitely goes on a different path, but there's some similarities there. But yeah, this is a stunner from the house, and definitely one of my favorites, for sure.
Nice. So Devante said Mas Milano Russian tea is one of his favorite fragrances.
Yeah.
What's the concentration at Robert Platinum? If you were talking about Kisses Rain, it is a parfum. So hopefully that was what you were talking about. If not, I know we've been going back and forth and just been enthralled into the Japanese questions and culture with Curtis Knows. So I am trying to go back down and catch up on everything. Let's see. He's saying a tea fragrance is generally office friendly.
Mm,
Most that I know are, in my opinion, usually those are more the office friendly fragrances. When I think of tea fragrances, I think of Oolong Cha, which I
mhm.
believe is office friendly. That's a strong one and loud, but it is office friendly. Just uh, watch your sprays. Louis Vuitton is another one. Imagination is a black tea, nice one. I think that's office friendly. Um, La Cordie has
Mhm.
tea in it. That's office friendly. It's citrus. So most of the time, usually the teas are going to be blended with citrus well, and I
Yeah.
think that those are usually going to be office friendly. Not so famous YouTuber, just subscribe. I just
Oh, thank you
want to,
so much.
yeah, everybody who has not subscribed to Curtis. I know that we have a lot of overlap as far as subscribers between Curtis and I, but if you have not surprised, if you have not subscribed to Curtis, it's Curtis Knows. You can look him up. Please subscribe. Please, that's one of the great things about bringing in, as you can tell, he's going to give you another perspective, and he's going to bring you some fragrances and fragrance houses that you're not going to get everywhere. And that's what it's all about. If you're a fragrance connoisseur, you really want to find out some different things that you can explore, you can research, and that is good. I don't
Thank
know. I guess this is in the chat. So I don't know anything about that one. Broken lips. Okay, you're talking about labius rotus. Yes, that is true. Okay, I had lost it for a minute, but I'm clicking in from the Spanish. I got you. Um, don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, please, everyone, hit the like button so that we can basically. I think this is a great live and it gives another perspective. And I think this is a great thing to show, even in showing some of the fragrances that we haven't even heard of the houses or we're not familiar with the exact fragrances that he's put. I think this will be a great one for people to see on the replay. I wish we had fragrance boutiques here in Detroit.
you.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to see. We have Neiman's and things like that, which has a good selection. The fragrance boutique that was in Dallas, the Scent Room, was really really nice, and I was able to find some really hidden gems. Uh, hidden gems was with me. I found hidden gems at the Scent Room as well, but my whole thing, because Jim's was actually looking at some of the things I was buying, and he was like, "What? That's a different one." And I really went there to get some fragrances that I wouldn't be able just to get anywhere. And so I really looked at some of those not mentioned houses that we could get to, underrated houses that we could look at, and I was able to get some great things from there.
Nice.
Let's see if I can go through the rest. Uh, love tobacco. I love tobacco rose as well. I know Sally doesn't, but tobacco rose is one of my favorites.
Ellie, come on, man. Tobacco Rose is a stunner.
Tobacco rose is a stunner. Yes, it's special indeed. John C. We're talking about tobacco rose as well. That's why it would be hard for me to get down to 3, but tobacco rose is there. Um, Here's one, Curtis. Have you smelled anything from imaginary authors? Slow explosions. Oh, well, he's talking about a particular one. So slow explosions.
Mm-hmm.
That's one focused on leather and apple as well. Wondering if there are any similarities.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with the house, but I have not smelled anything from them. But again, thanks for bringing them up. It's definitely a house that has been on my radar. But in terms of boutiques here in Japan, I haven't seen slow explosions carried. So yeah, it's been difficult to kind of get my nose on that house.
Yes, and Miss Teresa, no, I have not ordered anything today. My wife is somewhere in the background probably, and she could verify nothing has been ordered today. So I'm back on a no buy for a little while. We'll see how long it lasts. Let's see another question. Oh, here is a question. What got you into fragrances?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I always wore fragrances. So I started off with old Acqua di Gio, and then got into, I think it was Polo Sport a little bit, the blue bottle, and then also Hugo Boss. And then I've kind of worn fragrances pretty much since that point. I just really enjoyed smell. I just wanted to, I guess, kind of look and feel my best. And I think that's initially why I got involved in fragrances. And I think as my kind of journey continued, fragrances trigger memory for me. And so certain times in my life. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy fragrances now, is because of that. But also it's just kind of, I think I kind of see fragrances now also as like an accessory to what I'm wearing. So, depending on the season or where I'm going, the event, it's just like it's like a bracelet or, a pair of shoes that you're wearing when you go out. I just kind of see fragrances in that way, and it's just kind of a way for me to kind of look and feel my best.
Nice, nice. Yeah, definitely. I see it the same way. In fact, I think in my scent of the day has kind of even helped more hone that is I look at, well, what am I going to be doing today? What things are going to am I going to be doing, and then what fragrance do I want to wear to kind of accentuate my day.
Yeah,
So I really look at it as a part of me, and I take the time, and I really like what I've been doing with actually putting my scent of the day up because it allows me to explain exactly kind of why I picked the fragrance, how I came to it, and what stands out to me about the fragrance, which is pretty cool. It's a great time. I started doing it maybe a little more than a month ago, maybe like 2 months,
hmm,
and it's something that stuck that I'm really kind of cool with. I have some subscribers that definitely check in every day and we go through the
yeah,
sense of the day. I've learned a lot of stuff too from their sense of the day as well. So that's really been cool as well.
nice.
Um, let's see. Do you have? We'll go because I know we're going an hour and a half, and I don't want to hold you up too long. But we can, if you have one more fragrance that you want to say, and we can definitely we'll keep in contact, and if
Yeah,
we can have another time to do this. I really enjoyed it, and
yeah,
I had a
likewise.
good time. Had a good time.
Yeah, I
So we'll
appreciate it.
come
Yeah.
with one more fragrance that you want to tell us.
Sure. Um, hmm. Okay. I will go over to a fragrance house that I'm not too familiar with. I have heard a little bit about a couple of the fragrance from this house, but I ended up sampling this particular fragrance and absolutely fell in love with it. This one is coming from the house of Amarud, and it is Silver Birch.
Nice.
So, are you familiar with this one?
Only by watching your video. I have
Yeah,
two. Two from the House of Amaoud. I have Oud de Jour and I have Whetstone.
Whetstone.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so Silver Birch is basically it's like a plump, juicy fig. And the fig smells extremely well done. It smells very realistic. There's a little bit of greenness from the vetiver there as well, but it's not like such a damp earthy greenness. It's more of a fresh like freshly cut grass greenness, but it's very subtle. It's not overbearing, but the fig and the orange blossom in that fragrance are just married together so well. Um, and it does have a slight leather tone, a leather note that starts to push through once it starts to dry down, but it is extremely subtle. So, like for me, this fragrance, even though we're having we have very humid summers here in Japan, I can pull this one off in the evening.
Okay.
However, if that leather note was a bit stronger, I feel like it might be a bit difficult. But this one works perfectly in the summer evenings for me. And this fragrance is powerful. And you may have a similar experience with your fragrances from Amarud. This is the only one I've tried.
Yeah.
So I can,
They're all pretty strong. They're all
yeah,
pretty.
they're pretty strong. This one is, definitely I have to manage the sprays when I wear this one. But this one, just because of the strength of it, I mean, you could wear this for any season really. But yeah, it's a stunner from the house, and I'm definitely intrigued by this house. And there's another one that I would like to try called Lunar Vetiver. I love vetiver.
I love
Um,
Vetiver too. That's one of my favorites.
yeah, so that's another one that I'd like to try from that house.
Nice, nice. So I've been told I'm a good interviewer, like a newscaster on Channel 5. So yeah, I've done some interviews, not for the news, but yeah, I do some of the interviewing and going through presentations and stuff for work. But I really do appreciate you coming out, and it's been a really great time, even especially the time that we got the vibe even before the live started.
Totally.
I definitely want to reach out to you again, and we can reconnect and do some other things. I really think that we got a great connection as far as similar taste in fragrances, and it's just a cool vibe. So I would
Indeed.
like to reach out again, and we can come before the audience. I think that we got some great questions. We get to learn a
Yeah.
lot about you and Japan. So
No,
really, really appreciate
I
it.
I know I really appreciate you having me on. I mean, this has been a great experience for me as well. I was able to learn a lot, not only about you and chatting kind of offline, but also about the fragrances that you introduced. There's definitely houses that I was unaware of, so I took notes here and wrote those down. And also, again, I appreciate the questions in the chat. And I think one thing too that I just kind of wanted to touch on a little bit is just that in this whole journey of fragrances and kind of, you know, putting, I guess, my opinions out there on YouTube, the community is one thing that I totally underestimated. Just the great people that I've come across on this journey. So yeah, I can't thank everybody enough for that. And yeah, again, thanks so much for putting this together. It's been a great time, and yeah, we should definitely link up and do something like this again in the future
Def-
for sure.
Definitely. All right, guys, we are going to call it. I'm gonna drop a. So there is. Hopefully, I am working out with Dedrick that we're gonna do a music and sense back and forth. So we're just starting to feel it out, but hopefully that will come together. I think Dedrick has a lot of fire. He has a lot of music, and we're going to try to work something out because I just think I got a lot of fire and a lot of music too. So we'll see. We'll see what everybody says, and we'll get into it. We will leave with this song right here and hope everybody enjoyed the live. Again, we appreciate Curtis.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Take care. God bless.
No, I am not special ed, but I can be the magnificent. Put your fragrances to bed, eclectic with my sense. To be at the top of my game, my passion, my mission. Breaking down notes like nuclear fission, calling them out with a sniff, my only clue. Waving my hands like Aaron Terrence Hughes, a master with the fragrances, you know the score. Put a layer and blend together, drop panties to the floor. Some say it's a rumor, a myth, a lie, but if you wanna get close, then I'm your guy. See